Hello, this is Joe from Nerd in Korea, and I've got my blue shirt on. If you watch this channel, you probably know what that means. We're doing a blue deck. We're doing mono blue budget deck for our deep dive deck today. Kaho Minamo Historian. She's an interesting one. Poorly written card, but interesting. Anyway, going to get to that in a second. So she's very much a spell slinger. She could pull any 3 instants out of your library to do whatever you need. Here's where I've got a little addendum. I think there are 2 possible readings of this card. I'm going with the weaker one. If you believe the stronger one is correct, this deck still works. I'd say it's just much more powerful. Nothing in the deck falls apart if you read the card the other way. So anyway, there's my little addendum. Okay, so 2 blue, 2/2. When Kaho Minamo Historian enters the battlefield, search the library for up to 3 instant cards, exile them, then shuffle. So go get 3 instants out of your library, exile them, and then shuffle your library. Great start. For X and tap. Okay, we got to read this very carefully. Remember, okay, so Kaho exiles 3 cards. Remember, that's a trigger. It goes on the stack. It happens, right? So X and tap, you may cast a spell with mana value X from among cards exiled with Kaho without paying its mana cost. Okay, let's read that one more time. You may cast a spell with mana value X from among cards exiled with Kaho without paying its mana cost. Okay, the spell is still being cast and there's an ability. So there's one downside there where you're using an ability and still casting it, which means they have 2 chances to counter it. So there's a downside right there. Also, if you're reading this as Kaho exiles them, and then they stay in exile unless she basically opens the door for them, and it has to be this Kaho, then anytime this Kaho gets removed from the battlefield, that means you lose those spells for the whole game. If that's how you read it, which I think is a valid reading, and I think it's what they intended it to be, okay? That is what I think they intended it to say, but it's not what it says. It says, among cards exiled with Kaho. So if Kaho exiles it, shouldn't Kaho have access to it? It doesn't specify this Kaho. It doesn't say the cards exiled by Kaho. That would be those 3. It says, spells exiled with Kaho spells Kaho exiles, she can then cast. Even the clarification on the website does make it clear that it's not just anything in exile. It's not like any instant in exile. She can just go grab them. No. She does need to exile them. But what isn't clear to me is does it have to be the same Kaho? I know a lot of people are going to say yes. That is how I built it with that in mind. That is not how I read it. I think that's what they meant to say. It's not what they said. I think it's written kind of like a 90s card. It's my explanation there. It's ambiguous. Okay, we are doing the color challenge. I've done almost all of them already, so let's take a look at how we're doing. Again, we've got 3 monocolors, all the dual colors, and most of the tricolors. Alright, and 2 of the 4 colors, and we got 5 colors as well. We don't have colorless, and we're missing... Actually, next up, I am going to do Dune from next deck. Yeah, my next deep dive deck is going to be all about... it's a Dune one, and still kind of debating the commander given. But it's going to be food. It's all about making the most of the food. So anyway, but our last deep dive deck was on Grixis, a Wizard Kindred deck, and now we've got blue. So we're getting real close. We've got, 8 left, I believe? Yeah. Wait, is it 9 left? Anyway. No. Okay, 8 left. Not too shabby. Getting there. I just don't want to do bans. I hate bans. Banned. Anyway. Okay, so you need to control when Kaho is leaving and entering the battlefield. Keep in mind which conditions are close to and which you may be able to complete. What's really important is this deck is knowing what you want to go tutor at what time. Right? Which win con are you closest to that you can just like use and potentially take the game with right there. That is how you win with this deck. It is a little more tricky than a lot of decks I'd like to use. Also, remember, you can flicker Kaho and go get it, three different ones. If you haven't cast once, you lose the others, I think. But anyway, not going on that. Actually, this is the second time I'm doing this because I ranted about that for like 7 minutes. But yeah, so just keep in mind when we go through the win cons, we are going to talk about which spells you need to go tutor to be able to like get that win con done. Anywho, again, yeah, always keep your win cons in mind. Yeah, those untap effects are so huge. We have like multiple untap effects because they are so important in this deck. They are it's going to let you just keep casting. Make sure you get all the castings of all the things you've tutored by untapping. And even if you don't need to untap Kaho, they just let you untap a permanent, meaning you can go get land untapped if you want to, and basically use it as a pseudo ramp. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, this deck is $39.83, so just squeaking in under $40. And the objective is to get the most out of Kaho's tutor ability. The deck price is using the TCG market value price, not a sponsor. And I will put the deck on moxfield.com. A link is in the description, so check it out. Part 1, Kaho Minamo Historian. Alright, so this is about kind of how the commander works in this deck. Alright, so she's a spell slinger whose main strength is her ability to tutor out spells when you need them. Unfortunately, they are lost if she leaves the battlefield. Again, we are using that kind of weaker reading of her that I'm gonna not go rant about more, but anyway. So we are focusing on that kind of like what I consider the weaker reading of her card, and if you go by the other reading, frankly, it just makes it stronger. It doesn't make this deck not work. So anyway, yeah. There's what you do want to make sure is that you're able to get those spells off in case there is some kind of like removal effect or something like that being cast on Kaho. So if you can untap and then retap and then use the spell right away, you can guarantee it gets done at least. So high synergy cards, here we go. Tarlin Sky Summoner, 2 blue. He's a merfolk wizard, and the fact that he's a wizard is very important in this deck. He's a 2/2 as well. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 2/2 blue drake creature token with flying. So you're just gonna... Again, Kaho is able to keep you casting spells. You're probably going to cast at least one instant every turn, and quite likely more. And yeah, Tarlin is just going to keep making drakes. So that's really, really good. Again, he has cast trigger and he's making tokens. Both things that are very important in this deck. Also, we have Alandra. Alandra has, if you draw 5 cards in a turn, all drakes and her get plus X, where X is equal to the number of cards in your hand. We do have ways to just like mass draw cards as well. So you could potentially just turn that into a win con very easily. And we got Kelpie Guide. Again, this is one of our untappers here. Untapper is very important in this deck. Also, you not only can you tap to untap target permanent you control. First note, permanent. It does not say creature. I think all of these say permanent. Untap target permanent. Meaning land, right? If you want, you can even untap a land and basically use this as like kind of a pseudo ramp type of thing. So yeah. Or here, Kelpie Guide is nice because you can tap target permanent, activate only if you control 8 or more lands. We do have a fair amount of ramp for a blue deck. Blue is usually not good at ramp. This can ramp, right? Anyway. Yeah, it'll get done, and tapping one permanent may not sound like a big deal, but it's going to like mean you control other people's options. You're going to be able to turn off defenders, things like that. Blockers won't matter. So yeah, it's a big help. Step through. Okay. Again, return 2 target cards to their owner's hands. This is a sorcery for 3 blue. Meh. Remember, Kaho can only go get instants, not sorceries. So even if you wanted to, you could not get this. But yeah, I guess I put remember not to tutor this. You can't, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, what you really want this for is not casting it, it's to use the cycling. It has wizard cycling too, meaning you can go in your deck and just go get any wizard you want. Basically, it's wizard tutor. And there's a lot of very useful wizards. We already had Tarlind, right? What else do we have? Emery. If you see this, where this is going, you should know. But anyway, she is also a wizard, and for 2 and a blue, she's a 1/2. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. If you have an artifact, that's great. Or 2 artifacts, hey, you could cast for 1 blue. Sure. Don't really care about that too much, honestly, but so when she enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. So you are going to self-mill, which sounds not good, but can be very useful. Tap her. Choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. So she's going to be able to like just tap, and you can cast an artifact out of your graveyard over and over and over. Remember, we have a whole bunch of untap effects as well. And we've got a bunch of like artifacts that allow you to sacrifice it to get lands. So this is a land ramp engine right here. Remember, she can just keep doing it. So we've got like Wayfarer's Bauble. As long as you got the 2 mana to cast Wayfarer's Bauble and 1 mana to sacrifice it, you can just keep doing that and getting land. And she's going to be able to keep pulling it out. So as long as you've got the mana to keep doing it, there you go. That's going to be a whole lot, especially like the untappers. You can potentially like untap like up to 5 times. So yeah, Cage Sun. Oh, any monocolored deck should have this card. Okay, 6 mana for this artifact. Costs a lot. It costs 6. Worth it. Anyway, so as it enters the battlefield, choose a color. Blue. Yeah. Creatures you control of the chosen color get +1/+1. Creatures. It doesn't say non-token creatures or anything like that, so all of your tokens are going to be those drakes, especially those flying drakes, those 2/2 flyers or 3/3 flyers. Oh boy. And whenever a land's ability adds 1 or more mana of the chosen color to your mana pool, add 1 additional mana. So every time you tap any land for blue mana, you're making 2 blue mana instead. This changes the math on all kinds of abilities. Things that allow you to untap. Again, we've got like rewind and unwind. They allow you to untap like 3 or 4 lands. And it costs 3 mana and allows you to untap 3 lands. That's 6 mana. So you're doubling. We also have like Peregrine Drake. You can untap 5 lands. But untapping those 5 lands is going to make 10 mana instead of 5 mana. Really changes the math. Alright, so part 2, the plan. Alright, ramp. Always ramp. We don't have to worry about mana fixing because it's a mono deck, but ramp. Yeah. Untap. Cast triggers. And win con. Again, really, this is ramp. I'd say ramp and then whatever. Untap is very helpful. Untap cast triggers, they're a very helpful thing. It's not really necessary. But it's what you want to do. And then win con, of course, number 3. Or 4, whatever you want to call it. Ramp. So we got Cage Sun we already talked about. Doubling that mana just changes everything. There's so many, like, we also have effects like Snap. It's 2 mana. It lets you bounce 2 creatures. And then you get to untap 2 lands. And if you're untapping 2 lands, the way it's written, it's intended to be like 2 mana to that. The mana that cost is going back. Basically, it's like a refund, but with Cage Sun, it's ramp instead. Ugh, crazy. Omen Hawker. So for 1 blue, you can tap this to add a colorless and a blue. Spend this mana only to activate abilities. So this is all about what you can do with Minamo, right? You're gonna use this to power Minamo's things, and most of her spells are, even the spells don't actually matter because you're paying X. It doesn't matter what color, but yeah. You're gonna have 2 mana of whatever you need to cast that ability, to cast the spells that you've tutored out. So he's quite useful, also a great target for your untap effect, right? So if you don't have something like Cage Sun that's gonna give you twice your mana, you can untap him and get 2 mana out of him instead. Thought Vessel. The main reason we have this is for the no maximum hand size. You can potentially just draw a crazy amount of cards. We don't want to discard everything, right? So we're going to keep it in our ridiculously oversized hand. High Tide. Again, this is an instant, so you could tutor this if you want to. For 1 blue, until end of turn, whenever a player taps an island for a mana, that player adds an additional blue. So we've got a whole, I think it's something, is it 20 some? No, I think it's just under 20 islands and lots of ways to ramp. So you can potentially get just an insane amount of like mana out of this. It's just kind of ridiculous. Midnight Clock. This is a big favorite of many people, including myself. Anyway, 2 and a blue. You can tap it to add 1 blue. Great. Or pay 2 and a blue to put an hour counter on it. At the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. When the 12th counter is put on Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, then draw 7 cards, exile this. So it's like a mana rock that makes colored mana that you want up until it gets that 12th counter, and you can put mana, or you can sink mana into it if you want to get that effect going off earlier. This can be used kind of to trigger Elandra and stuff like that as well. Remember, you're drawing 7 cards, so yeah, that is going to set Elandra's trigger off, and you can just like probably use this as like a very strange win condition, maybe is it one way to put it, but anyway. On tap, Clever Conjurer. He can untap target permanent not named Clever Conjurer. Okay, a weird way to say that, but Forensic Researcher. So again, untap target permanent you control, and you can tap also collect evidence 3. Tap target creature you don't control. Again, to collect evidence 3, exile cards with total mana value 3 from your graveyard. We're not really doing much else with our graveyard, so that's a nice option to have. Ireth of the Healing House. For 2 and a blue, untap target permanent or untap 2 other legendary target creatures. Again, that is so good because, you know, then you can untap Minamo and something else. It can't be her, unfortunately. That would be kind of an interesting little 1-card infinite combo, but Kelpie Guide. We already talked about Kelpie Guide as well. Remember, if you get those lands down, this turns into like quite useful. Turnabout. This is a card I haven't seen before, and apparently everyone else has. Kind of amazing. Again, it is an instant, so you can go tutor this out. So 2 blue, choose artifact, creature, or land. Artifact, creature, or land. Tap all untapped permanents of that chosen type target player controls. So you're going to choose a player and tap everything of that type, or untap all permanents of that type target player controls. So you can untap all your own lands with this if you wanted to, especially if you've got like Cage Sun, High Tide, and this. This is one of our combos here, as you can imagine, that just makes a ridiculous amount of mana. It's not infinite mana, which I think is kind of a good thing because some people don't like infinites, but it's a combo that is just ridiculous. But yeah. Also uses like a win con potentially, right? You just tap down someone else's creatures and they can't block, and then you just win. That's not bad. Anyway. Cast triggers. Okay, we've got Archmage of Runes. I'm going to adjust this a little bit because I can't see. I should make it so I can see things, yeah. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. Card draw. Oh. Also, instant sorcery spells cost you 1 less to cast. Oh my. Tarlin Sky Summoner, we talked about already, but yeah. Keep casting, get those drakes. So good. Metallurgic Summonings is this an enchantment. So whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create an XX colorless construct artifact creature token where X is that spell's converted mana cost. Again, you're just gonna have like a pile of these you can make. Also, for 3 blue, exile it. Return all instant and sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. So this is just like, you can put everything back in your hand. We've actually got a few other effects that let us put stuff back into our hand, but this is going to be like a mass. Put everything back into your hand. Almost like a reset button. Especially if you're tutoring out a bunch, getting them into your graveyard after casting them, then you back to your hand, then back to your graveyard, and then you can go from your graveyard back to your hand again. Oh. Once again, instant sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast. Basically like Archmage of Runes. And yeah, this is one of those cases to solve. Cast 4 or more instant and sorcery spells this turn. If unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. So at the beginning of your end step, it just gets solved anyway. But yeah. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. So just card draw again. You could have Archmage and this out at the same time, and every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you're drawing 2 cards. And a lot of the instants will let you draw cards as well. So, card advantage done. Shark Typhoon, whenever you casted a non-creature spell, really nice non-creature, right? So your enchantments or your other enchantments and your artifacts also will do this. But yeah. Create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. So you're making, it's blue, which is nice. Also, it's a flying and a shark. Tarland and this out at the same time, you're just making these token flyers like non-stop, right? And if you have Cage Sun out, they all get +1/+1. Yeah, whenever you cycle Shark Typhoon, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. Probably don't want to do that, but okay, the enchantment's way better. Win cons. Okay, so I'm going to review win cons for this deck a little differently than usual. I'm going to focus on which spells Kaho can tutor out to activate them. Again, that's the main thing with Kaho, is that, especially if you can flicker Kaho, Kaho, not Kaho. Trying to talk too fast. But yeah, if you can flicker or recast or whatever, you're going to be able to just choose whatever spells you want, and boom, there you go. Win the game. Scourge of Fleets, again, 5 blue. Very pricey, okay? I'm calling this win con 1, everybody jump. So when it enters the battlefield, return each creature with your opponent's control with toughness X or less to its owner's hand, where X is the number of islands you control. You're going to have a lot of islands. They're going to have some ridiculously tough creatures to be able to not go back to their hand. probably you can just like send this back to their hand, or everything back to their hand, and they pretty much have to recast their board. And yeah, if you've got Ghostly Flicker or what is the other one called? Displace. These will both let you just like flicker this, and then you can yeah, just keep doing that. So pretty much anytime you want, you can be like, okay, no more blockers for you, I win. Okay, I'm calling this rap battle because it's all about getting drakes. Haha, I'm so funny. Anyway, 2 blue blue, Merfolk Wizard. Again, she is another wizard, so that wizard cycling, if you've got it, you can go get her. Or Tarland, for that matter. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying, so she can also make 1 Drake per turn. And whenever you draw your 5th card each turn, she and Drakes you control each get +X/+X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. You can easily have a very, very large hand. So yeah, even if you've made like 3 or 4 Drakes, her and the Drakes are going to each get +X/+X till end of turn, which will hopefully make them just massive, scary flyers that really can like tear apart dragons easily. Even the instant to tutor out would be Flow of Knowledge. 4 in a blue. Draw a card for each island you control, then discard 2 cards. The discarding, you know what? That doesn't really matter for her. As long as you've got 5 islands, you draw 5 cards, and she triggers off of that. And then yeah, you pretty much are gonna like be able to decide when you want to win right there. Win con number 3. These pigs want to blow my house down. This is all about using Curse of the Swine. Keep in mind, Curse of the Swine is a sorcery, so you cannot tutor it. Also, you wouldn't want to tutor an X spell anyway, because the way Kaho's ability is written is that you can pay X and then the converted mana cost of the spell gets cast. Basically, she will cast this as 2, right? You cannot just pay extra and decide to do the X cost. At least the way I read it, you couldn't. So yeah, I believe there is finale of Revelation, is it? The blue one? I have the art for it right there. I'm pointing, you can't see me pointing, but yeah, so this is X blue blue for this sorcery. Exile X target creatures. For each creature exiled this way, its controller creates a 2/2 green boar creature token. The main point is not to just shut down their board, but also you're going to have like a bunch of drakes or something like that to have even any kind of evasion will do. If you have your tornado sharks, they have flying, no problem. And then you're going to basically take away anything they have with flying, anything they have with reach, gone. And then you just win the game right off of that. And this is what I'm calling a finisher here. Maybe the last one's a finisher as well, but anyway. How the turntables. Turnabout 2 blue blue for this instant. Just insane card. I know I already talked about this, but yeah. Basically, you're going to do what I said before. You're going to choose someone else. Tap all their creatures. There you go. This is also really nice for like if someone's way ahead, letting everyone else attack them. Again, if you attack down their board, everyone gets to attack them, not just you, right? Alright, part 3, combos and tactics. It's all about getting the most value. We're going to start with the flicker. We got displace. That's what I was trying to remember before. Did I say displace? I feel like I said something different. For 2 and a blue, actually I'll do ghostly flicker because it does the same thing. Sorry, displace is only for creatures. Ghostly flicker is for artifacts, creatures, or lands you control. Then return them to the battlefield. So they're different, but yeah, we're mostly just wanting it for the creatures, I think. So in that way, the same. And snap. I mentioned this one before. For 1 and a blue, return target creature to its owner's hand. Untap up to 2 lands. I think I said it was 2 creatures before. It's only 1. But yeah, untap 2 lands. The main thing to keep in mind is that when you've got Caged Sun out, or High Tide active, that is when it suddenly... Those 2 lands can be 4 or even 6 mana. So yeah. It'll switch it up. Flicker targets. Okay. So we can flicker, but what do we want to flicker? Solemn Simulacrum. Again, he enters the battlefield. Go get a basic land. Nice and simple. Always happy to have an extra basic land. Scourge of Fleets. Just keep bouncing everything everyone else has. So they spend pretty much the whole game just trying to recast their board. WinCon, also mean. Archaeomancer. Okay, you return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is another one of our ways to get things back to our hand, which is very, very handy. Okay. Anyway, it's real nice, especially in a Spell Slinger deck. It's going to do some work, right? Peregrine Drake. Okay, so on tap, he went in and just the battlefield on tap up to 5 lands. You might see the combo already. Emery, Lurker of the Loch. Okay, Emery is a weird one to have on this list, but when she enters, you get to mill cards, which is not usually a benefit, right? The main thing I would think of here is if someone takes one of your artifacts and puts it on top of your deck. Then you flicker her in response and basically knock that artifact into the graveyard, and then you tap it and cast it from the graveyard instead. So in a very specific situation, it is actually quite good, but you need to like have... It's nice to have in your back pocket, I think, yeah. Infinite Mana. Okay, so we got Peregrine Drake, Archaeomancer. If you got those 2 out, or even if you got Peregrine Drake, you could Wizard Cycle out Archaeomancer because he is a wizard. And once they're both on the battlefield, displace or, Ghostly Flicker. Either one, you can basically just infinitely untap. You can tap all your lands, keep untapping. And then, this is going to go to your graveyard. Archaeomancer is going to enter. And this comes back to your hand. And then you use the mana that you untap to cast it again. And just keep doing it all in a circle, right? And you're untapping more lands than you're using to cast the spell to set this off. That's why it goes to infinite. So you do make infinite mana. A lot of people don't like infinite combos. I get that. You can easily just avoid this or do it only once by like using displace on a different target other than Peregrine Drake will end that right away. Also, you can just like target, anything else basically. So yeah, it's a potentially infinite combo, but it's an infinite that you can shut off anytime. So I feel like that's a bit better. More mana. So we got Caged Sun I keep talking about, High Tide, and Turnabout. I already mentioned this combo before, but again, Caged Sun, all of your blue lands that make blue mana, I should say, make an extra one. High Tide, all islands make an extra mana. Turnabout, untap all your land. So yeah, tap down everything, get a bunch of mana, use the mana to cast Turnabout, untap everything, tap it again, make a ridiculous amount of like up to triple mana. Oof. Whoa. Anyway. Recycling. Mission Briefing. So again, Surveil 2. Choose an instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. You may cast it this turn. If the spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Basically, it just lets you like cast a spell that you already cast. You do have to exile it after, but it's going to let you Surveil 2 and do that. We also got Flood of Recollection, which brings it back to your hand instead of just casting it. So you can wait, which is kind of nice. I say Mission Briefing's better overall. Also, we got Wishing Well. Keep in mind, we also have the enchantment. What is it called? Metallurgic something? I'm spacing now. I looked this up like 5 times today, but anyway. And we also got Archaeomancer that can get things back to your hand. So these are like the extras, is what I mean to say. Anyway, 3 in a blue for this artifact. You can tap it, put a coin counter on Wishing Well. When you do, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with mana value less than or equal to the number of counters on it, and then exile that spell. So basically you can get a second casting on anything you want, as long as, yeah, you've got those counters. Once you've got like 4 or more counters on this, you're probably just going to be able to like keep recasting things out of your graveyard every turn over and over and over. It's only 4 mana, so even if you've cast like 2 mana and 3 mana spell, you've already made 1 extra mana, right? Control. Okay, when you exile cards, remember that everyone can see the cards that are in exile. Unless it specifies exile face down, they're supposed to be viewable to everyone. Usually that's a downside. We're going to use it as an advantage though. So yeah, we're going to turn that on its head. Shore Up. Okay, for 1 blue, target creature you control gains +1/+1 and hexproof until end. Gets a +1/+1 and gains hexproof until end of turn. Untap it. This is crazy with Kaho because you can tap Kaho, cast it from exile. She gets +1/+1, hexproof, and untap. So anyone wanting to like stop you from using that tutored spell, tutor this out with the other spells, she will be untapped automatically, and yeah, any target removal, you're just going to like be like, nope, sorry, hexproof now. Shut it down. Cool, mean. Anyway, Aetherize. Return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. Again, 3 in a blue, 4 CMC is what I meant to say. 3 in a blue. Basically, if you've got enough mana and you have this, all you need is either Kaho untapped or something that would let you untap Kaho, which we have plenty of, and no one will want to attack you. That's really the best form of control, is like the big stick, right? Anyway, Annul. For 1 blue, counter target artifact or enchantment spell. Again, this is really going to change how people play, right? This is going to make people make decisions differently. If they see that you have this and you can cast it for 1 mana only, if they know you've got that counter spell ready to go, whatever artifact or enchantment they've got that they're going to use to set up their win, they're just not going to cast. It's going to hold them at bay. So again, you got Kaho even tapped if there's one thing untapped, or you got one of your untappers out and 1 mana available, you can really kind of keep their main win con at bay with that. Rewind. I mentioned this already. 2 blue, counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands. If Cage Sun is out, remember, that's potentially actually making mana. That's a ramp instead of just like being a rebate on a counter spell. It's going to be a ramp spell. And last up, Ghostly Flicker. Okay, I know we talked about this one already, but keep in mind, if people know that you have Ghostly Flicker ready to go, they're just not going to bother targeting a lot of your stuff, because you'll just flicker them and they're gone and no longer a legal target. So what's the point? This not only prevents them from doing it on you, it targets the other players more. It gets them fighting more, which is really just a great thing to do. Anyway, this has been Kaho, Minamo Historian. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really liked building this deck. At the outset, I was kind of a little iffy on it, but by the end, I'm quite happy. Alright, take it easy.